Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Brady Dental Care Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and today we're going all around, at least virtually, all around our beautiful state of Iowa. And to do that with me, Megan Bannister, do I just call you editor-in-chief of Olio in Iowa?
Sure, yeah, editor-in-chief, freelance writer, content creator, other titles as assigned, any of those work.
Other titles as assigned. There's also a couple books, too. We're gonna get into those secrets in Iowa we're talking about. Mm-hmm. We're talking about world's largest stuff. Yes. Maybe supper clubs. And some unruly behavior that came from the supper clubs. Absolutely. We're going to talk about. Your family's still very much involved in supper clubs and mob activity, so I'm going to ask you about that. Totally kidding. But before we get started, everybody, this is your reminder. Subscribe to the show. It's on Spotify, iHeart, Apple, everywhere. Literally everywhere. Make sure to subscribe and rate the show 5 stars. It helps other Iowans find the show. We always appreciate that, and tell 10,000 of your neighbors. So, Megan, let's start with, there's a lot to cover here. Yeah. But let's start with, we're going to get into unexpected Iowa destinations that maybe are off people's radar. There's some obvious ones. Mm-hmm. Secrets in Iowa that most people don't know about, supper clubs. We'll get in there your background as well, but let's start with the funny stuff, the fun stuff. You've done a lot of surprising research on world's largest items in the state.
Yes. I love the world's largest thing.
So this has to go back to, like, what was the point? Like, there was a point where you're like, hey, this world's largest stuff is quite hilarious. I should cover it. Or is there a little backstory here?
Kind of. So I have always loved kind of a weird and wacky thing. And I've always been the person on a road trip who's like, let's pull off the highway and stop at this thing that I found.
You're one of
that,
those people.
I am. That has no website and may or may not be closed. And it's always like 2 minutes off the road and 2 hours later, you're horribly lost.
Yes.
So I have always been that friend. And so I stumbled upon world's largest things, I think initially on a road trip to San Francisco with some friends in college. And we stopped in Omaha when they have the world's largest ball of stamps.
Yes.
And so we stopped there and I was like, wow, this is like kind of fun. And then through just like research and looking up other kind of weird and wacky places, discovered that there was an artist in Kansas who had created the world's smallest collection of world's smallest versions of world's largest things. And so she has all of these miniatures, like a quarter size big.
Wait, where's this one?
Lucas, Kansas. Her name is Erica Nelson.
And it's the world's smallest stuff?
The world's largest collection of the world's smallest versions of world's largest things. Yes. And she toured them around. You can go see them. But she had kind of started to compile a list of where you could find all of these large things. And so then that really kind of piqued my interest. And so it's always something that I look for when I travel. And then, as I got more into travel writing and that kind of thing, it's kind of been a thing that I've really niched down on and started doing a series the last year and a half or so on social media. That's World's Largest Wednesday, where we talk about a world's largest thing every Wednesday.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm,
you still do this?
Yes, yeah.
I guess I didn't do enough research. I didn't see that. That's awesome.
Started it primarily on TikTok. I'm a written word person. I'm not a video person, but just did it kind of as a lark, and people have really liked them. They have like almost 8 million views for all of them.
Wait a minute. You're doing this stuff on TikTok, and you have 8 million views.
Yeah, on World's Largest Wednesday alone.
Are you serious?
Yeah, people love them. So it's been more than a year of, I think we've featured 70 different places now for World's Largest Wednesday, and so those come over to Instagram as Reels as well if you're not on TikTok. But so that's been just a really fun way to kind of showcase them in like really, really tiny snippets. If it's someone who doesn't want to read the whole backstory and 3,000 words on Albert the Bull and Audubon or any of those things.
So do you put these on YouTube Shorts too?
I have been a little bit delinquent, but I do.
So you're starting to get them over there too. Mm-hmm. Okay, so What is, okay, I wasn't prepared for this, which is fine.
I love
You
it.
never know where this is going to go, right? What is involved in World's Largest Wednesday on TikTok? What does that even entail?
So usually it's like 30 to 45 seconds of just a real quick hit of a world's largest things. So they all start kind of with the same like intro of this is World's Largest Wednesday. We talk about a world's largest thing every Wednesday. Here is the place that we are. And so yesterday was Wednesday, and we talked about the National Mustard Museum in Middleton, Wisconsin, which is the world's largest collection of mustards. And they have, I want to say it's more than 6,000 different mustards from all 50 states, 70 plus countries, lots of like fun and funky mustard memorabilia. And then they also have merch for a fake university that they call Poop on You. And
that's perfect.
It's so funny. And so, yes, so they are a very weird and wacky collection. So it's everything from that to, the world's largest ball of popcorn in Sac City and kind of the backstory and the specs for that. One of the ones that got the most traction that I think is just so funny is the world's largest ketchup bottle in Collinsville, Illinois. So just kind of over the border from St. Louis. And it is a water tower. And it was Brooksville ketchup. And so it's spelled with a C. It's the catsup spelling. And people had very divisive opinions about that.
Really?
Yes.
On TikTok? Comments?
Yes. Oh, in that it was...
What can be so divisive about this?
The two problems were the catsup and that it was a water tower and that it wasn't actually full of ketchup. So it could not be the world's largest. Yes. And so then you had people that were upset about that. And then other people who were like, the actual world's largest bottle of ketchup is probably from Costco. Like, where is your sense of whimsy? So I encourage any and all of that.
Some of these people need to get a life.
Oh, yeah.
Like, seriously.
Oh, yeah. But
why aren't they going out and doing TikToks on world's largest items instead of commenting?
Yes. So it's very funny to watch. But I love when people like comment or make their own videos or stitch things and say like, hey, we went here because we saw, all of these weird things.
I always tell the haters, like when they comment on stuff that I write, like, thanks for the algorithm bump.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm like, fight in my comment section all day. Please.
They're like on a business, totally unrelated, on a business group I'm a part of. Someone's like, I keep getting some of these comments. I'm like, don't touch them. Just leave them there because that serves you up to more people. Just leave them there. Yeah. So that's like, haters are good.
Yeah. Well,
because they spread your message wider.
Especially on TikTok where you can have a little bit more of that like irreverent comment back. So.
Do you shoot all these now? Are these like stock videos of these things, or do you shoot them on location and then like bank them and then leak them out later?
Yeah, so they are so far all places I have been to.
Wow, that's cool.
And so
it's video of the thing.
Yeah, so it's video of the actual thing. And for the most part, it's been video. Some of them that like I said, I'm a words person. And so I was not always like natively shooting video. So if it's been somewhere I've been in the last probably 2 to 3 years, it's video content. Otherwise, it's like an intro that's video content and then like photos. And sometimes I'll do like the green screen with me talking, or sometimes I'll just do voiceover. And those have performed like equally well.
All your Iowa stuff, do you have all that on TikTok, or will it be on TikTok soon then?
So all of the world's largest things in Iowa.
So I'm going to go through them real quick. You want to go through them?
Yeah.
So, because you'll know more about these than I do, so we're going to really test your knowledge.
Yes,
here.
I love it.
So, truck stop, you been to the truck stop?
Yes, yeah, we did a really fun. Actually, I did a partnership with the truck stop.
I always forget, like, what technically city is that?
Walcott.
Okay, Walcott. So
yes.
tell me everybody a little bit. We'll just do like a 30-second hit of each of these. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. So, truck stop, city, and give people an overview.
Yes. So the world's largest truck stop in Walcott, Iowa. So if you're on I-80 crossing the state, you absolutely have seen it or stopped at it. And it has been there for like, I want to say since the 50s or 60s, and really has just grown. They are the largest by square footage, but also by acreage. They have quite a bit of land around them that they haven't expanded and developed. But they have, I want to say they're open 24/7. I want to say it's like 5,000 visitors a day is the number, but I'd have to double check that. It's like they see a massive amount of people. And then actually last year we went because I have family in Chicago, so that's always our halfway stop. So we are familiar in my house with the world's largest truck stop. But last year, for the first time, we went to the annual Truckers Jamboree, which they have in July, which is like a whole festival for the truck drivers. They tour and have like contests for the most decorated rigs. They do the trucker Olympics with like tire flipping, and
really
they have live music.
No
idea. It's
idea.
all in the parking lot of the truck stop, like off to the side on the like truck wash side. But the world's largest truck stop, if you have only ever gotten gas and not gone in, they have, I mean, any food you could want, a giant like convenience store area, but they also have a dog wash, a dentist, all sorts of things that if you're a truck driver, you might need as an amenity. So they have laundry facilities. They have a lounge and movie theater. They have like on-site screen printing and things like that.
My word.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that they have that I think people just like don't realize if you're a normal tourist driving past is kind of wild.
That's one of my clients was in logistics and transportation.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, if you're doing research on your industry, you have the world's best gift, which is the world's largest truck stop, literally an hour or like an hour and a half from your doorstop. That's the best market research you can possibly do.
Oh, for sure.
Concrete Gnome City, and what's that about?
Yes. So the world's largest concrete garden gnome is in Ames at Ryman Gardens. His name is Elwood, and he was installed as like an Earth Day celebration. And so he's made by two artists. The concrete got added because it was a technicality. So he was beating out a gnome in, I want to say New York, named Noam Chomsky, who was the previous world's largest. And then as they were finishing up Elwood, they learned that there was going to be another gnome built, I want to say it's in British Columbia, that was like just slightly taller than him. But because he's concrete, it was too late to like increase the specs. And so they added the little caveat of the world's largest concrete garden gnome.
Oh, because there's another gnome that's bigger, but it's not made of concrete.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Swedish coffee pot.
Yeah. So the Swedish coffee pot is in Stanton, Iowa, which is like southwest Iowa. And they did that. Was a water tower for Virginia Christine.
So one of those technicalities again. Is it actually a coffee pot?
Well, and it actually is no longer a water tower because they painted it and added kind of a spout and a handle to make it look like a real coffee pot.
Right.
Because the woman who was the Folgers spokesperson is from Stanton.
What?
Virginia Christine is her name. And she was like the Folgers spokeswoman for quite some time, was on the cans, was in the commercials. And so they did that as kind of an homage to her. And then Stanton is a very Swedish town. So that's kind of why it has the Swedish coffee pot angle. But I want to say probably like 10-ish years ago, they had redone a lot of their water main systems and they didn't need the tower anymore. And the legs had started to rust. So it was a little bit of a hazard. And so they were going to have to tear it down. And the community really rallied behind it and got it lowered. And so now you can see it at the Swedish Heritage and Cultural Center. Oh. So it's not on stilts anymore, but it still is there. And they've repainted it. So it's almost more
legit now.
Yes, it's a little bit more accessible. So they have the pot.
Easier to get on TikTok too.
Yes, they have the pot that's at the Cultural Center. And then they do still have the cup, which is like a Swedish painted coffee cup water tower. And that one is still in use. And you can kind of drive by and see
My family's Swedish, so we do Swedish Christmas we're also like part Irish or something. It's a mess of just like anybody's ancestry, but we always do Swedish Christmas every year, and we make the rice pudding and the Swedish meatballs. Oh, so good.
Love a Swedish
My wife
meatball.
makes it. She like reverse engineered or figured out because some of these recipes are passed down, and she had to like reverse engineer the recipe by combining two different recipes and figured it out. And you know, it's like she did an incredible job. And then the meatballs, we changed a little bit, but the meatballs were more simple. And she actually brought it back to an actual like Swedish recipe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is like mushrooms and gravy.
Yeah.
And, it's ridiculous. Albert the Bull, that's the other one.
Yes, Albert the Bull is in Audubon, so also a Western Iowa one. And that was something that the local community fundraised, actually the JCs fundraised to build as like a homage to the cattle industry in Audubon. They still do like a Cattle Days celebration, but they had a really big impact on kind of the stockyards in Chicago. A lot of the cows that were being raised to go to the Chicago stockyards were based in Audubon, is where the producers were. And so they were kind of getting on the rail lines and going to Chicago with their cattle. And so as a nod to, they still produce a lot of cattle in that area, but as kind of a nod to the history, they built Albert the Bull. And he is very large. You can go and see him in one of the parks there. And he has been, I'm trying to remember, he's been a clue on Jeopardy. He's been in
Really?
Beethoven, the movie.
Wow.
And then he also, someone told me about this one recently and I had to go back and check and see. But in one of the Twilight movies, she has a t-shirt quilt and there is a t-shirt from Albert the Bull on the t-shirt quilt that is in the Twilight movie.
So technically bigger than New York's brass bull then down on Wall Street?
Oh yeah. He's like, oh gosh, I don't remember the specs off the top of my head.
So it's not even close as
no,
what,
no,
yeah,
it's like 15 feet tall. Like he's big.
Oh my.
Big. Yeah, he's big.
Okay, so yeah, kind of beating the snot out of New York there. That's what we
Absolutely.
like. We like to beat the snot out of New York.
Absolutely.
Great town, but we're better. Anyway, don't at me. Ball of popcorn.
Yes, the Ball of Popcorn in Sac City is a super fun one. So this is I believe the 4th ball of popcorn the town of Sac City has made in the attempt to be the world's largest. And I think they will. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think they will hold on to it.
This is a hot area. Apparently.
It is. Yeah. They kept getting beat by some Boy Scouts in Indiana and then a state fair. I don't know if it was also Indiana, but this is the 4th one that they created. For it to hold the record, it did need to be like real popcorn.
Oh.
So it has been there since, I believe, 2016 or 2017 is when it was created. It's in a little shed with like clear windows so you can kind of peek in on it. But it was like popcorn and corn syrup and all the things that you would use to make like a normal size popcorn ball, but just like thousands of pounds. So it's in like a shed with plexi windows that you can go and see.
Barometric chamber or something.
Yeah, I would not. Well, in one of them, I don't think it was this past one, but one before, or it might have been the initial one. But to get rid of it, they figured like, oh, we'll just like, feed it to cattle. And it was so like congealed that they couldn't break it apart. And so at a county fair, they decided like, oh, we'll just shove a bunch of dynamite in it and like explode it.
Seriously?
As a thing. Oh yeah. And they did, but it like flew in the air and then broke in like 2 pieces. Like that's how congealed it was, because they were thinking like it'll rain popcorn, and it did not. So the last one, I think they actually had to like remove from the other shed with like a bobcat because it was like so dense and heavy. And so hopefully this one.
So the method they use to like make way on roads and blow up actual rock and mountainside did not work for the popcorn ball.
Did not work.
Good job, Sac City.
Yeah.
We should hire Sac City to make like our bridges.
Right. Yeah.
Out of popcorn balls.
This time they actually too made like
send them up to Minneapolis to like redo
the roads.
Yeah. That 35W bridge came down the first time, probably because they did not make it out of Sac City popcorn balls.
Could have been made out of corn syrup. Yeah.
Could have saved a lot of time and money. Okay, Cheeto. I didn't know about this one, actually.
Yes, yeah. The world's largest Cheeto is in Algona, so up in northern Iowa or northwest Iowa. And it's at a restaurant called Emerald's Fine Food and Libations. They inherited it from another restaurant that it originally had been at. But essentially, this man found this giant Cheeto, and it is like silver dollar size. Like it's considerably larger than a normal Cheeto. But found it in a bag of Cheetos, and I want to say Hawaii, on like a naval base he was stationed on, and he put it for sale on eBay, and it like reached like over $1 million on eBay. And then they shut the auction down because they don't allow, I think it's like they don't allow like foods, like the potato chip with Jesus's image. I don't think they allow that kind of stuff.
Can you imagine losing out on that? Like thinking you're going to get $1 million payday?
And so a local DJ, a radio DJ in Algona had started a campaign and like a fundraiser that did not raise that much money to bring the Cheeto to Iowa.
Yeah.
And so this man who had found it and put the bid up saw that, and so decided like he would just send the Cheeto to Algona, and then they donated the money they had raised to the local food pantries. But you can still see it. It's if you go to the restaurant, they have a bar area, and it's like right behind their bar area. It's on like a purple velvet pillow under like a little glass thing. It is like, oh gosh, 15 years. It's older than you would want.
How is it like not decayed or molded by now? Have they sprayed it with something?
I don't think they've sprayed it, but it is getting a little bit like dusty, crumbly. Like I think if you touched it, it
would fall apart.
It would fall apart. So it's being preserved under glass.
Hopefully it doesn't smell that bad.
Yeah. No, I've been there.
I'm still stuck on the guy that lost $1 million.
Yeah, right. On his big Cheeto.
We had like we put our house up for Airbnb once during the fair when there was like nothing available. And someone wanted to, like, I don't know, we had it listed for a ridiculous amount of money. and it ended up being someone booked it for the whole 10 days.
Oh, wow.
Which would have been, I think, something like $20,000 or something like
nuts.
that. And Airbnb had a glitch that day, and the reservation never confirmed. My wife was actually happy because she was like, I don't want someone else in her house. I kind of did it without telling her.
But like for that much money, you can do whatever you want to my house for that much money.
This is what I thought. This is what I thought. Wooden nickel.
Yes. So that one is in Iowa City. And it was put up as a form of like a protest art, essentially.
A wooden nickel.
A wooden nickel.
Okay.
It says, "Don't tread on me." But they were talking about changing the speed limits and the road width in that area. It's kind of in the area of Iowa City if you kind of pass downtown and you're going like north where it turns into like rural 2-lane highway a little bit. And so one of the landowners, people in the neighborhood, was not a fan, decided he was going to express that displeasure by building this giant wooden nickel. That you can go see.
How does that express displeasure? A wooden nickel. What's the story there?
I think it was like the eminent domain of like, don't adjust the speed limits in our area. But yeah, that was the method he chose.
Nothing says let me go faster like a good old fashioned wooden nickel.
Exactly.
That's what I tell my friends all the time. Where was that city again?
Iowa City.
Oh, it is Iowa City. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So did I get all of them? Truck stop, concrete gnome, Swedish coffee, Albert the Bull, ball of popcorn, Cheeto, wooden nickel.
There are more.
But that you've gone to.
Yes.
You've gone to more. How many more are there?
Let me see real quick.
Oh,
there
my word. While you're looking for that, does this work? Like, does this actually attract, when you go to these locations, are there tons of people there looking at this stuff?
I wouldn't say tons of people, but it's definitely something that like, I think attracts people. And actually,
really?
There is so this past summer, and when I started doing this, the thing that literally probably 30% of my comments were people asking if I'd been to a town called Casey, Illinois, down like an hour south of Champaign-Urbana. And they were a super tiny town. They had lost a lot of their big manufacturers, and their downtown was dwindling. And so one of the local business owners had some sort of a fabrication steel pipeline business, and so decided he was going to make a giant attraction. The I-70 had also bypassed them, and so they weren't getting the same traffic as they normally were. And so this town was dying, and so he made the world's largest wind chime to start with, and saw that people were coming to see it. And so they now have 12 world's largest things, and probably like 20 to 30 just big things.
How do people get the word out about this stuff, though? Like,
so there's
just tourism magazines.
Yeah,
and,
they put a bunch of billboards on I-70 to say like, hey,
commitment.
we're 10 minutes south of here.
I guess I have seen random world's largest billboards. So
and a lot of it works. A lot of it is like the old school. A lot of them don't have websites. A lot of them are just kind of like word of mouth weird. If you're on this road and you happen to see it,
well, I mean, this podcast, World's Largest Ego, and that's gotten quite a few people to stop in so far.
I'm just kidding. There you go.
I don't know. Did you find that list?
I did.
Okay. How many of there more are there? Are we talking 20, 30, 100? What are we talking?
I want to say there are 12 in Iowa.
How about this? Why don't we post that? I'm going to post that in the show notes.
I'll send you the link because I have a list that's just all of them.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. So that's going to be at iowapodcast.com, everybody. And I'm going to post that full list. But there are also like, what are those because you're an Iowa person, you've been all over the place.
Yeah.
And so what are the unexpected like destinations in Iowa? I think everybody focuses on or thinks of like the ledges. That's something people, or Pella's Tulip Time.
Yeah.
But what are those unexpected destinations that are pretty incredible but often left out?
Yeah. Places that we really, really like or have been like, oh, this is really fun and surprising. We went to actually last winter, and we're headed back there this weekend. We went to Cedar Falls. So kind of college town vibes, different scale and feel than Iowa City. But we went to they do an ice harvesting festival.
Whoa. I didn't know
their historical society, one of the properties that they manage is an ice house museum. And this actually is in my book that'll be out in September. But they had a really big industry because of their locations on the Cedar River. Harvesting ice for a really, really long time. And they have a decent sized Amish population that still harvests ice in the winters that they store and use clear through the summer for some of those communities. And so every year they do an ice harvesting festival where those members of their community that still do this as like a regular practice come and do demonstrations about, how they harvest ice, what that looks like. They have, food and chainsaw ice sculpture carving, and they do some ice fishing and just kind of really interesting cultural things that you might not think of. So we went and did that and stayed downtown at the Hotel Blackhawk and just had a really, really great time kind of wandering around and eating. They've got some really great breweries. And
the Hotel Blackhawk it's like that historic
property. Yes, the Blackhawk Hotel is that one.
Yeah, because there are two Blackhawks. There's
the
one
Hotel
near Davenport or
is
something.
That one, and the Blackhawk Hotel is the one in Cedar Falls.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful historic property.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, it's super cool to see all the level of detail. It's more old, like for those that haven't been there, it's more old timey.
Yes.
Like there's some of the hotels that are like renovated, but they're modern.
Yes, it's not like modern historic. It's like you still get a metal key to get into your room.
Yeah, it's like historic.
Yes.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So
they have like a little martini bar hooked onto that too.
Yeah, the Bar Winslow is super cute.
Yeah, it was super fun. We had a couple martinis there.
Yeah.
What else? Cedar, and the ice harvesting thing is super cool.
Yeah.
Like that still blows my mind that because don't they pack it really tightly with like sawdust and stuff so it doesn't melt?
Yeah. So you can go
crazy.
to the museum is not open in the winter because it's a former ice house, so it is not heated. But if this time of year in the summer, if you're headed to Cedar Falls, you can actually go to the Ice House Museum and kind of learn all about it and the process and how they stored it and kind of how all of those things worked. And then you can go back in the winter and see it in action.
What else sticks out? Unexpected destination. That's certainly a good one. Cedar Falls, Ice House, Old School Blackhawk, and martinis. Yes.
Let's see. Another spot that I think people often overlook is in southeast Iowa. So the villages of Van Buren, kind of down by Burlington along the border there. They are an artist community and they have some really, really neat local history, but then they also have a lot of local artisans that have set up shop there. And it is kind of like stepping back in time. Like they have a blacksmith and
cool.
wooden boardwalk that connects all of their shops and like a historic bridge that you can walk across the river on. And it really is just like the quaintest little town, but with some really, really cool local arts. They have ceramicists. They actually have a folk school. So if you want to learn something, you can go there and take a class and learn, chair caning or ceramics or woodworking or any of those kind of traditional arts that they teach. And then in Bonaparte, which is one of the communities in the villages of Van Buren, Bonaparte's Retreat is a kind of hidden gem restaurant I love to tell people about. It's in an old grist mill.
The name of the restaurant is Bonaparte.
Bonaparte's Retreat.
Oh, Bonaparte's Retreat.
Yes,
okay.
In Bonaparte, the city.
Yeah.
But it's more than 100 years old. They have a killer tenderloin. It's just like a really cool, unique, historic place to eat. And also really good food.
How does it compare with like Goldie's tenderloin in Prairie City? Like on par?
I would say on par.
All right.
Yeah.
Are they in the tenderloin contest?
I don't know if they have been.
We gotta figure that out.
I'll have to look.
Okay. Anything else stick out? Because I also want to so I want to, maybe we can get on to, I'm going to get into what's the okay, I want to know. What is the secret?
What is the secret?
There's a secret here in Iowa, or maybe several.
Yes. So there are.
And I know you have a book coming out about this, but would you like to tell us what the secret is before the book comes out?
Yeah.
Maybe give us a tease.
So my book that'll be out in September is called Secret Iowa, and it's a guide to the weird, wonderful, and obscure. And so there are actually 84 secrets in this book.
Wow.
That are all places you can visit across the state. And so,
are we going to get whacked by the CIA for talking about this?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know that there's any super secrets. It's been very fun to kind of take, because I'm not an original Iowan. I didn't grow up here. And so some of the things that I am like, oh, I know about this place because I love weird and obscure things. I've had to ask, my in-laws and friends who grew up here, like, hey, do you know about this thing? And then trying to think of places that, like the Iowa State Fair that are obviously not a secret. But what are some secrets about the state fair?
Sure.
Or some of those kind of mainstay things?
So what are a few?
So in line with the state fair, this was one of my favorite ones. If you have ever been in like the Hy-Vee Kids Fun Forest area and noticed that or if you're a person who likes to go to the fair museum like me, and noticed that there is a pair of cement elephant statues. After the Depression, the Fair Board and the Register Tribune at the time decided to drum up fair attendance by having kids from around the state send in change to buy a baby elephant that would live at the fair. And her name was, it's a little contested, but either Mine or Baby Mine. And she lived at the fair for like a decade or more, and did a great job drawing attendance to the fair. Ultimately, I think they realized like keeping and feeding an elephant is a lot more costly than they anticipated. As she got bigger, especially. And so she kind of toured the country for a while and then ended up being sold to a circus and has kind of a sad backstory after that.
So there was one of the original children who was like there and donated to the fair or something like that, was at the Iowa State Fair a few years ago when I was working with iHeart. And I was in the media pool, like little media spot they have underneath that office administration building.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And she was like, they were touring her around. And I said, wait, what's going on? And I was like, I have a show. This was with iHeart and WHR Radio. I was like, I have a show. Can you please come over and tell us the story? And she did. And it was so cool. Now, she says it was Baby Mine.
Yes.
That's what she says.
Well, and so, yes. And so that's what I've heard from various people. But yeah. Well, and then in my brain, I was like the song from Dumbo. Because that's what I connected it with. But Dumbo came out like much, much later. And that song was written specifically for Dumbo. So I have not been able to get any sort of corroboration if the Baby Mine song from Dumbo is based on Iowa's own.
I don't even remember. I'd have to go back and dig through the archives to see if I can find who this lady was. I know I have her cell phone somewhere.
Funny,
so maybe I'll try to get it to you.
Yeah, let me know.
I wanted to talk about supper clubs, but we're out of time. But you did write a book on that too, right?
I did, yes.
So why don't we do this? Tell people where to find that book.
Yeah.
How to get ready for your new book.
Yeah.
And then give us the website so people can connect with you, because I know Iowans listening to this will absolutely want to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So Iowa Supper Clubs is my first book that came out in 2020 about kind of what supper clubs are. And then it also includes 10 that you can visit across the state and dine at. And so you can find that at any major retailer of books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Also, all of our local indies in Des Moines have it, which is really fun. And then you can also buy it online directly from me if you want, if you go to iowasupperclubs.com. And then my new book, Secret Iowa, will be out in September. You can find that one if you go to secretiowa.com. And then my website, where you can find the list of world's largest things, any of the weird and wacky stuff around the Midwest and beyond, is Olio in Iowa, which is OLIO in Iowa.com.
And if you're driving, everybody, don't worry. I'm going to have all those links at iowapodcast.com. It's really easy to find. And that will also be in the show notes of this episode as well, making everything really, really easy. Megan Bannister, editor-in-chief, traveler extraordinaire, and collector of world's largest things. That works.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's nice to have you here. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.